Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel, and today we're going to mix it up a little bit with Storytime Saturday, where we talk about real estate, but we talk about it in story form. And today we have a very special guest, the man that stole a house. Let's do it. Okay, so before we let you go into your story about how you stole a house, I wanted to let everyone know that the opinions you may hear today are not necessarily those of your host, and I would only advise you to do ethical and honest things in your real estate career. But this is something that you are going to need to know if you're buying real estate at auction. There are some things that you may want to watch out for so your house doesn't get stolen, and that's really why I wanted to share this with you guys today, so you could make sure you're not on the other side of this coin. Okay, so let's get right into it. How did you steal a house? And my understanding is that it was legal.
Well, Jason, he left it unattended, so I took it.
Okay, I'm gonna need a little more than that. Can I call you Steve to protect your identity?
Steve? Really? I don't want to be a Steve.
Okay, John?
Fine, whatever. It's really simple, Jason. We were at the foreclosure auction, and he won this bid on this $1 million house. And when he was asked how he was going to take title, he did not have a company set up yet. So he looked on the Corporation Commission's website to make sure the name wasn't taken, and he just named it, let's just say the name of the property was 123 Main Street. So he told the auctioneer he would take the property in the name of the address of the property, which is 123 Main Street. This is pretty common for experienced investors. They don't want to put the property in their own name, so they have a separate LLC for each property that they buy. But at the auction, you don't know if you're going to win the bid or not. And so sometimes they just create one, and then, knowing full well that they're going to run down to the Corporation Commission later that afternoon and create that LLC, as long as they check to make sure it hasn't been taken, no worries.
Okay, and then what happened next?
I happened, Jason. I happened. I figured out what you can call me. Call me Mr. Worries.
So the way that the foreclosure auction works is if you have a property and you don't pay your mortgage, eventually the lender will call that note due, say, hey, we're in foreclosure. They'll send out a 90-day notice, and this may be a little different depending on your jurisdiction. In Arizona, it's 90 days, but I know in New York, it's quite a long length of time, can be up to 2 years. But in most states in the country, in most counties in the country, each one of them has some kind of foreclosure process where the lender can take back the house if you don't make your payments. And so the way that they do this is once that auction happens, once the foreclosure is complete, they list the property at auction, and that's the final step of the foreclosure, is to recoup as much money from that auction as the lender can to satisfy that note. And people will come in from the public. Oftentimes they have to put down a $10,000 to $20,000 money order in order to secure their bid. But once they do, the auctioneer will get up and read off the property. And sometimes there's multiple auctioneers going at the same time, depending on your location. And you know, the bidders bid on the property, and it goes to the highest bidder, and they have to pay it within 24 to 48 hours in cash. So that's how the foreclosure auction works. And a lot of times this is a very fast-moving, fast-paced situation where there's properties being sold, you know, every couple minutes, depending. Back in the last crash, you would go down there and there would just be, they would be there for hours and hours just auctioning off properties, and people, sometimes there was no bids, sometimes there were lots of bids depending on the property, but there were some great opportunities to be had at that time. Everything ebbs and flows. Sometimes the auctions are a great opportunity, and sometimes they're way overbid. I know in Las Vegas and in Arizona and a lot in California, as a lot of these flipping shows started to come online, a lot of people started running down to these auctions and bidding up the prices very high. And at one point, it was almost better for me as a realtor selling people's houses to take their house down to the auction and auction it off. I would actually get a better price than I would listing on the MLS, and it would be sold in 24 hours. So sometimes, depending on supply and demand, it can get out of whack, and depending on how many people are at the auction. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But in this scenario, this person bought the property. The auctioneer asked them, how would you like to vest this property? Would you like it in your own name? Would you like it in a company name? Most seasoned investors don't want to put the property into their own name, so they're going to have a company. And in this case, the guy didn't have a company formed, and so he just used the property address and added an LLC on the end, not realizing, and then he went home and he forgot.
So are you telling the story or am I? So what happened is he went home and got busy with life and forgot to create the LLC. So now he bought this property and took title in the name of 123 Main Street LLC, but he did not create the LLC. So that same day, I went to the Corporation Commission and created 123 Main Street LLC, and the next day, he was required to pay in cash the total amount for the property for the winning bid, and at that point it recorded in the name of 123 Main Street LLC, which was my corporation that I had just created. Legally, I did nothing wrong. I just created an LLC and he placed the property in it. Now I own this property worth over $1 million free and clear.
Hold up. That's not funny anymore. So you legitimately stole this house. No, certainly this was like your buddy and you were pulling an April Fool's prank on him and be like, hey, don't be stupid. I stole your house. Here it is. You gave it back to him, right? Right?
No, I leveraged it. I went out and got a mortgage, took a cash out refi for the max amount, and took that money and went and bought rental properties.
I don't know what to say. So to clarify, this person bought this house at auction, paid the auction amount, but forgot to record the LLC. You created an LLC for what, $170, and then that property was recorded in that new LLC's name. And so now you own that LLC, so you own this property free and clear. Do not want this to be an informational video on how you can go down and steal a house, because in the end, did this turn out to be a positive experience for you?
No.
Right. In the end, it all gets worked out, lots of legal fees, lots of hassle. But as a buyer, this is something you may want to be aware of, that you may get in a situation that you didn't want to be in. Be careful, folks. That's probably not a good tactic to go out and take title into a company name that you don't have formed yet. So now, aside from people stealing your house, which I think is not a common occurrence, actually this is the only time I've ever heard of it happening, but other things that could happen at a foreclosure auction is, a lot of times this does happen, is people will buy a second mortgage thinking they're bidding on a first. What will happen is a second mortgage may foreclose on a property, but the people continue to pay their first mortgage, and the second mortgage actually forecloses, and somebody comes in and buys that second mortgage, and that does not wipe out the first mortgage. So they've bought, maybe they overpaid thinking that the house is worth $200,000 and the property's going for auction for $30,000. They bid, up to $40,000 or $50,000 to win the bid, only to realize that there's an underlying mortgage for $200,000 and they're totally upside down. That is a very real scenario that happens, and that's why you always want to have your title company doing the title research on these foreclosure properties to make sure you are buying a first mortgage and not a second mortgage, and there are no other liens free and clear after the foreclosure is done. I think he left. Maybe we'll have him back to explain once all the dust settles on all the nitty-gritty details on how this played out. And he also told me another story about where he bought half of a house and he had to go in and wall off his half to protect his half of the house. So wow. So this did really happen, and it wasn't our intention to rub salt in the wounds of anybody or really inflame the situation at all, but to inform people that there are scenarios out there that you need to be aware about. And if you do know these parties, please keep that private. We did dramatize this a little bit and change the details and some of the names to protect those people. Anyway, guys, if you like this type of content, I would love to get a subscription, a like, or comment. Click that notification button before it gets stolen, and I'll see you on the next video.
Also, you better share this video with your friends, or I might steal your house.